Hasselblad has always carried an aura of artistry, heritage, and engineering precision. And the X2DII camera feels like a crystallization of those values into something that balances modern usability with that same old-world prestige. When you first hold it, the immediate impression is its design. Compared to its sibling, the 907X, which leaned heavily into a classical and almost vintage aesthetic, the X2DII is unapologetically modern. It is geometric, stripped down to sharp lines and surfaces, and you can tell this was conceived by designers who understand restraint. The grip protrudes slightly to the right, which adds both comfort and a sense of balance, while the flat, clean surfaces allow the camera to maintain an air of elegance. There's something very Scandinavian about it, a deliberate minimalism that doesn't try to shout for attention but commands it anyway. Details reinforce this design philosophy. The top plate now comes in a matte dark gray, a subtle shift from the glossy black of the earlier model, and the engraved Hasselblad logo is darker than the surface itself, whispering its presence rather than screaming it. This is luxury done properly, when you minimize unnecessary ornamentation and instead focus on the proportions, the finishing, and the tactile sensation of every interaction. Even small things, like how the edges are shaved down into a continuous curve that wraps around the body, reveal obsessive thoughtfulness. You won't find misaligned joints or awkward seams here. It's metal all around, cool to the touch, and assembled so seamlessly that it feels carved from a single block. The only notable plastic you'll encounter is on the hot shoe cover, which is forgivable. Everything else has that cold, weighty assurance that makes you question how they engineered such a dense yet refined body. And it isn't just the visual design. Every button and dial feels purposeful. The control wheel has just enough resistance to provide feedback without being noisy or harsh. The half press and full shutter clicks are clean and confidence-inspiring. The new joystick, introduced in this generation, changes the way you interact with focus points. It's quick, intuitive, and almost unthinkable that the previous model didn't have it. Even the small details, like the side port cover, have been elevated. It closes with a satisfying, almost magnetic snap that makes you want to open and close it just for the tactile pleasure. These are the kinds of touches you usually find in high-end automotive interiors, and yet they're here in a camera. The battery mechanism, too, has been designed with care. Instead of fumbling with latches or awkward compartments, it glides out after a slight release and requires just a nudge to remove completely. It's the sort of interaction that seems minor until you use it every day, and then you realize it's invaluable. Other photographers describe the feeling of holding the camera as akin to lifting a precision car door or handling a piece of heavy-duty military equipment. In contrast, many other premium cameras start to feel like toys once you get used to this. The grip design has been updated as well. Previously it used a more conventional rubber-like material, whereas now it sports a unique web-like texture. At first, it seems unusual, but it grows on you. It keeps the camera steady, prevents slipping, and adds visual character you don't often see on photographic equipment. The rear display also makes a leap forward, moving to old, bright, vibrant, and crisp. It feels almost on par with what you'd expect from a high-end smartphone or Apple device. It's difficult to go back once you've seen images rendered here. That said, not everything is perfect. The electronic viewfinder, while large and spacious, falls a little short compared to its competitors. The resolution doesn't quite match what Fujifilm has achieved, and the colors feel slightly muted. It's better than Sony's offerings, certainly, but when you're spending this much, the margin of comparison is razor thin. Initially, the automatic eye sensor for switching between display and EVF felt sluggish, but adjusting the sensitivity and settings made it more responsive. Once tuned, it became intuitive, and the option to automatically activate live view through the EVF as soon as your eye approaches is a genuinely thoughtful touch. One of the most consistent delights with Hasselblad is their interface. The menus are stripped of clutter, intuitive, and designed so you never feel lost. It's not that the camera lacks features, it's that unnecessary distractions are hidden away or simply not included because they don't add value. In use, the absence is never frustrating. On the contrary, it feels liberating. Coming from Canon, Sony, Fujifilm, and even Sigma, this camera feels like the most coherent operating experience yet. Everything is simple, elegant, and logical, which ironically makes it faster to use even though it's not drowning in pages of options. Now, let's talk about perspective. With the 907X, its design was so unconventional that you never compared it directly to other cameras. It was an oddity, something you carried differently, used differently, and therefore judged differently. The X2DII, by contrast, looks and behaves much more like a traditional camera. It has a grip, a viewfinder, and familiar ergonomics, which means as you shoot, you sometimes forget it's a medium format body. You find yourself instinctively comparing it to full-frame cameras from Sony or Canon. And in those moments, its weight, slower autofocus compared to the very best hybrids, or large screen might suddenly feel like disadvantages. But this is a mental trick. It's not that the X2DII is weak, it's that it's now capable enough to be placed on the same playing field as smaller, faster cameras. That in itself is remarkable progress. And when you recenter your perspective, the performance is astonishing. Autofocus has been overhauled. The camera no longer relies only on phase detection but combines it with contrast detection and even incorporates LiDAR-based focusing. Yes, actual LiDAR, something almost unheard of in this segment. The result is speed and reliability in low light that feels transformative. It even extends to recognizing not just people but animals and cars, and nod to how photographers actually shoot in varied environments. Image stabilization also feels almost surreal. The new IBIS is so powerful it's been jokingly described as having a tripod built into the body. Handheld exposures down to a second are genuinely possible with steady hands. This opens creative doors that previously required lugging around extra gear. And then there's dynamic range. With a staggering 15.3 stops, it's among the best you'll find anywhere. The HDR implementation is fully handled within the camera, no external processing required, which is rare in the consumer market. Paired with the OLED display capable of hitting 1000 nits baseline and 1400 peak, the images come alive with contrast and richness. Of course, the catch is that to truly appreciate HDR files, you'll need compatible displays. If you're viewing them on a standard monitor, much of the brilliance will be lost. But for those with modern Apple devices or professional HDR-capable displays, the payoff is extraordinary. And then there are the files themselves. This is medium format, so detail is simply overwhelming. The gradation from highlights to shadows is smooth, natural, and film-like. Hasselblad's color science continues to be among the most pleasing in the industry, rendering tones that feel organic and painterly. Straight out of camera JPGs already look like carefully graded images. Summing it up, the X2DII represents an important evolution. In the past, medium format was always a compromise, stunning quality but with obvious sacrifices in speed, autofocus, stabilization, and usability. With this generation, those compromises are minimal. In fact, in some areas like stabilization, it actually surpasses full-frame competitors. This is no longer a niche, tripod-bound specialty tool. It's a camera you can carry for everyday photography if you're willing to embrace its size and weight. And here's the kicker. Despite all these improvements, it launched at a slightly lower price than its predecessor. That alone feels almost surreal in today's market, where new models almost always get more expensive. It's a statement that Hasselblad, even under DJI's wing, is serious about expanding its reach beyond the most die-hard professionals. Ultimately, what makes the X2DII special isn't just its performance. It's the way the design and engineering inspire you to use it. Holding it is satisfying, shooting with it is addictive, and reviewing images is exhilarating. Few cameras manage to spark creativity simply through their presence. This one does. It's not perfect, nothing is, but it's a rare example of a product where the artistry of the object matches the artistry it's meant to capture.